Okay, for the second day in a row, exactly as the time lag hypothesis would predict, Texas set another single day death record yesterday. Remember that cases started spiking in Texas around mid to later June, like June 16th to 18th. We anticipate typically a 19 to 21 day lag time between cases and deaths. And so if cases start to spike between June 16 and 18, we would expect deaths to spike right now. And that's exactly what happened. We had a then single day death record in Texas of 85 deaths on Tuesday. And then yesterday, an even bigger number, 50% bigger, 121 deaths yesterday. So this does not bode well for the next 10 days because the new cases were actually twice as high last week in Texas than they were back in mid-June. Very, very ugly. Also notable that Florida, the other state, along with Arizona and California, that's seeing huge numbers of cases. Florida today, as of noon, had already gotten a new single day death record, only as of noon. So things are looking very, very bad. Now, meanwhile, in Oklahoma, you might remember that Donald Trump had a rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a couple of weeks ago. Oklahoma set a new case record yesterday with 858 cases in one day, which probably is not coming as a shock to too many people. So what's important about this is that when we saw the cases start to spike, but not the deaths, the most easy explanation, the easiest argument to make was there's a lag between cases and deaths. It's about 20 days. There were other ideas thrown out, and I've mentioned some of these ideas to you before. It's younger people getting the virus, so the deaths aren't going to spike because young people tend not to be as affected by the virus. We're doing more testing, meaning that on average, the people being tested are healthier. So even though there are more cases being reported, we're not actually going to see as many people die. States could be lying, and it's still not clear that states are being totally transparent. And all these different ideas. The virus has mutated and become less serious. It sadly and tragically is looking more and more like the explanation is the simplest one, which is cases started going up sometime between June 16 and June 20, depending on the state. And 20 days later, which is now, we're starting to see the deaths spike. Now, meanwhile, and I'm going to have more coverage of this on tomorrow's program. Meanwhile, Donald Trump wants kids back in school. He wants all kids back in school in person, despite the medical community saying this isn't safe, despite public health officials expressing concern about sending all kids back to school, despite a number of summer camps having to be shut down because so many people, so many kids have gotten the virus, including in, I believe it's Arkansas, Missouri, and one other state at least has had to shut down summer camps. And the projection coming out of Donald Trump's mouth lately is truly stunning. He said earlier this week that states are keeping schools closed for political reasons. He even tweeted yesterday, quote, "In Germany, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and many other countries, schools are open with no problems. The Dems think it would be bad for them politically if U.S. schools open before the November election, but is important for the children and families. May cut off funding if not open." Now, Sweden aside, Sweden's having problems. The other countries Trump mentions dealt with coronavirus. The reason that schools are opening in those countries is they have so few cases. Germany, Denmark, and Norway had at most a couple hundred or new cases a day recently, or even like in the teens or just double digits. We have 60,000 new cases a day. So if you want to be doing what Europe is doing, you should have handled coronavirus like Europe did from the beginning. Now, I also can't ignore that Donald Trump is threatening schools with pulling funding if they don't open. Trump said he doesn't want to make this political. He said that earlier this week. He says he believes schools are being kept closed for political reasons, but Trump has identified that he believes schools are being kept closed to hurt him. So Trump is now saying, we don't want to make it political, but we're going to force you to reopen schools under penalty of pulling funding because he believes it will help his reelection if schools are open. That's making it political, which he claims schools are actually doing. Consider also this incredible hypocrisy. If it's too dangerous for Paul Manafort and Michael Cohen to be in prison because of coronavirus, how is it safe to reopen every school? And I know some of you will say, but David, Michael Cohen is not an old guy, but he's older than kids. Paul Manafort is even older. I think Manafort's in his 70s. Kids are not as at risk when it comes to spreading and serious cases of coronavirus as people Paul Manafort's age. That is true. But what about the teachers? What about the parents? And tens of millions of children going back to school are going to put millions of adults at risk. And I want to be really clear. I get economically the importance of opening schools. A lot of parents can't work if their kids aren't in school because they can't just afford childcare. So even if every single day, full-time childcare. So even if the job has reopened for the parent, they may be unable to work if their kids aren't in school. I get it. But we have to be sensible. If schools had to close when there were 100,000 active cases in the United States, how can you say they should open when we have 1.5 million active cases in the United States, which is roughly where we are estimated to be right now? I'm struggling with the math of it. And tomorrow on the program, at the top of the show tomorrow, because of the Supreme Court decision on Trump's taxes, we just ran out of time. Tomorrow, we're going to talk more about the case for opening or not opening schools. Almost all American journalism is controlled by a few massive corporations, and News Voice is a one-of-a-kind mobile app that tracks the bias and corporate interests that infuse the news stories we consume every day. And it's totally free to use. It's a great tool to have on your phone. News Voice is not funded by advertisers or corporate investors. The platform is supported by contributions from users like you. The News Voice app will have some really excellent new features soon, specifically for the 2020 election, but they're wanting to expand their team of independent journalists. In order to keep everything running, they're offering special rewards to anyone who wants to give to their new Kickstarter campaign, which can be found at newsvoice.com/kick. Giving a contribution will come with rewards like insider access to group chats with News Voice staff members, as well as access to a variety of special features. Go see what News Voice is all about